Hey Satya, wow, that's quite a cool look, by the way.
Hi.
Yeah, I love the look.
Yes, hello. Yes. Sorry, I was just doing nothing for the change and I thought I'll just join in like that.
Nice, nice. I like
Yeah.
that. Well, good. I feel the sessions are getting more chill and relaxed, which is what we wanted. And that's very good to see. Thanks for bringing
Nice.
the vibe. Hi, Amina. Hi.
She's
She's
still
still
figuring
setting
it
up.
out. Yeah.
She's still setting it up, and then she's like, hi. Hi, Sohil.
Sohel, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
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 Good to see
What's
you.
up? So this is my first session with all of you guys. I think this is the 10th episode, right?
That's correct.
It's the 10th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's good.
Yes.
So is this a weekly thing that happens or?
Happen every 2 weeks, Kaushik,
Nice.
every second Saturday
Okay.
of the month. No, not of the month, like every alternate Saturdays.
Fortnightly.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Hi,
Sorry.
Kaushik,
Yeah, that
Sahil.
was.
Satya, first time to you as well.
Yes, I think first session for me as well.
Well, not first session with me,
Yeah.
interestingly. But thanks for joining. I think just because some of us have been here a couple of times, could everybody who's joined in new just say where you're joining from and what do you do, and then we can make a start on the session.
Sure. So should I go first? Okay. So I'm Kaushik. I live in Bangalore, though basically I'm from Calcutta, and I work for a company called Triance. It's into IT consulting. I am into their learning team. I manage the assessment center as well as handle a bit of OD and of course L&D. So that's that. Yeah, that's it.
Interesting, interesting. Very similar to my role in Willistar's, Kaushik.
Oh, great.
Assessment psychometrics. Yeah, yeah, interesting.
Nice.
Who's going next?
I think I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
Hi everybody, my name is Sahil, and I work for this company called Please Don't Laugh. It's called Bewakoof.com, and it's
I
an
know.
online
Now we'll
e-commerce.
laugh.
And um, so I have close to 6 years of experience into HR right from the start. I've been associated with Bewakoof for the past 4.5 years, so kind of seen the journey. And I take care of recruitments, operations, HR, grievances, and everything. So it's,
Wow.
it's
Nice.
more of a generalist profile. Yeah.
I have a lot of t-shirts from Beavercool. So thanks.
Once-
Freebies need freebies. Uh, who else?
Yeah, so I'll go next. So yes, my name is Satya. I work with Nokia Networks. I work as a learning consultant, more as a competence development manager. So I take care of a lot of work around competence development, job architecture, of course, learning consulting. So I've moved away from the execution side of learning now onto consulting and planning.
Nice.
So I
Is
used
it
to
just
facilitate.
because? Sorry, Satya. Keep going. My
No problem.
laptop keeps
No problem.
freezing. Keep going.
All right. Okay. So yeah, so I was a facilitator earlier. So earlier I used to facilitate a lot of workshops and coaching sessions and so on and so forth. Now it's the other side of the table. So yeah, that's what I do.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Sohil.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Sohil Popat, and basically I am from Gujarat. Currently in Bangalore for almost 7 to 8 years now, and I'm working with a company called Think Talent for 2.5 years now. My role in Think Talent is of program management and client servicing. So mostly I'm interacting with the client on the outer side rather than internally with the company side. So that's a bit about me.
Nice. Think Talent is some a company that I've connected with a lot, even in the UK. So yeah, so nice.
Is it
Because I
Yeah,
really? So there is a common thread between like four of us. So Shruti,
Yeah.
me, Satya, and Sohil. All four of us have worked for Think Talent.
I'm still working.
really.
You are still there.
Okay, so Think Talent. So I work for Savile Assessment, and Think Talent is basically one company that we have been looking at in India. Um,
Yeah,
and we I kind of was doing some kind. I was trying to find people who work for Think Talent. So thanks for telling me that, Gurleen. So there you go. More stuff to talk about after this. But
Sohil,
thanks.
what kind of organization is this? Is it into resource
This is
management?
a HR consulting firm.
HR consulting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. So I'm glad that you guys already know each other. No inside jokes, please.
Hey, no, we don't know each other. Like we joined at
Yeah.
different
Different
times.
times. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like
Sohil,
yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
left
Yeah.
few
Shruti and
months back.
yeah.
Yeah, so Sohil and I, we work together.
Okay.
yeah. So
And
I had an opportunity to work with Shruti for a
yeah,
smaller stint.
Yeah.
I was
Nice.
there long back. I was there from 2013 to 15
Yeah. So I joined when Satya left, and I saw
when I
Satya's
left.
wedding
Yes.
card. I saw Satya's wedding card
Yes.
lying in the office.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Small world.
Yeah.
Well, that's a crazy good story. So that's very good to know. And I think that is the beauty of it. I think when we started Gulleen, do you remember I said that you don't even know if your colleagues and professionals from the same field are living next door to you.
Yeah.
And now we have something where we can all meet and say, oh my God, we worked for same thing or we had the same experiences, which is the point. I think because a couple of us are new here, just a little bit about glass half full. Only two things: be candid. There is no need to be formal because this is something that we wanted to be, super chill. Don't have to wear a tie before speaking. And that is why we had the second part, which is drinks, which is the biggest icebreaker, chiller in the world. So some of us sit with beers, gins, wine, whiskey, um, tea, coffee. I don't support that, but fine, tea, coffee. But you have to sit with a drink. That is the point because whatever happens, a drink makes everything better, in my opinion. I could be wrong. So that's
Yes,
that.
you are in my case because my mother-in-law stays with me. So,
Give her one. That is why some of us here only drink tea and coffees. Yes, Shruti, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
You can enjoy that as well. See, look at her. Um, so that's that. I'll quickly introduce the topic and say what kind of things we are kind of catching up on today. But jump in. This is more of a conversation. I'm not here as a panelist or a SME because I don't know anything about anything. So let's discuss stuff. We always say 30 minutes. It's never 30 minutes, but whenever you have to leave, feel free. So I think happy teachers day, first of all. No surprise there that today's topic was more around teachers and mentors and having that kind of influences in our lives. For me, funny thing is when I started glass half full, the first person who joined was my teacher from my college. I used to study in University of Delhi, and she joined, and she's in the group. So for me, it's almost come full circle. Um, I think I have had a lot of experiences with, like all of us, with mentors with different kinds. Some people not so great, some people amazing, some people I would rather forget, and some people who I would rather have in my life for a longer time. And I think when me and Gurleen were talking about it, I think Gurleen, what we thought was there are some traits that really make great teachers and mentors. and there are some traits that anybody in the teaching and mentoring profession should never have or not bring out when you're with a student. So I think this is more about that, touching upon the psychological aspect of teaching, mentoring, influencing. Um, I think I'll get us started by sharing that I've had experiences with teachers, and I will share that. But first thing is, which I didn't realize, was I am a teacher as well. And I used to teach underprivileged kids for 3 years, 2017 to 2020. And I never called myself a teacher before today. But today I got a lot of happy teachers day wishes. And for me, that was like, I did not realize that I'm a teacher, right? I did not realize that I've been doing that for ages. So I think there are people like us as well, like all of you, who have been teachers for people, and you don't even realize. So I think it's kind of recognizing that as well, a little bit about ourselves. Um, and before we go forward, cheers to all the teachers and to class up for you. And those who don't have their drinks, ooh.
Happy Teachers Day.
Okay, cheers, guys.
Cheers, cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
So, what are people's experiences with teachers, mentors?
What loud silence. Let
Like
me take that. So, while I started thinking about it, I found it rather difficult to come up with few names of teachers or few incidents that have really contributed in my life. Because, there is not a single aspect of my behavior or characteristic which is not learned or acquired. And those are learned and acquired from a teacher or a mentor or a manager or a trainer. So that way it was difficult. However, I am here with a few key things that I've learned from my teachers. So starting with so while I was in school, we all have learned this, which is called mnemonic solutions. While we was learning about periodic table and while we were learning about the metric system. So we learned that and I forgot about it. Okay, when I came out of school and then went to college, almost forgot about it. Unless I again got into a profession which is around training, around learning, and I found the benefit of mnemonic solutions in knowledge retention. Being into this field of training and learning and development, whenever I am in touch with my content designer, I put a lot of focus in mnemonic solutions, which is nothing but making your learning process or your knowledge retention and memory retrieval much easier. So you come up with acronyms, you come up with abbreviations, funny things, funny acronyms.
Yeah.
So that's something which is very funny and at the same time very useful in training. So that is something I can't name a teacher who taught me that, but then it's a collective learning which I am right now implementing in my field of work. So that is something which is very helpful to me.
Yeah, I think Kaushik, you're right. Like, come to think about it, when I do trainings and when I use stuff like meme chats and stuff, that is coming from a lot of things that my teachers used to use. You're right.
Yeah. And these days, there is a lot of talk happening around metacognition, which is nothing but learning to learn, thinking to think.
Yeah.
So, and it's nothing but the same thing. I mean, there are various spatial and visual mnemonic solutions that people are coming up with. Stanford has started a research around it. So there are a lot of papers which you found. So it's a big thing. I mean, it's in vogue right now in the learning fraternity. And I never realized that it's such a fundamental things that we learned back in school days.
Yeah. You're right. I like that thought. Nice. Who else has that? I mean, it's interesting that you say you don't have that particular incident, whereas for me in my mind, I have 10 incidents that are jumping up and I'm like, oh, I hated her or she hated me, or like I loved her and I hope she loved me. So I don't know who else has that.
Yeah, I think when I think of, teachers, of course, I think their primary role is to impart knowledge. But the ones that we remember for a lifetime are probably the ones who really touched us or showed how much they feel or how much they care about us. I think especially when children are growing up or as a teenager, when there's so much of, peer pressure or there's bullying happening, it's those who, taught us to think outside the classroom, the ones who said, protected us maybe even from bullying, or, when you were lonely and you were outcasted, the ones who actually guided you, sort of, transformed you as an individual. That those are the people who we really kind of remember forever. At least that's how it is, for me.
Yeah. And I think,
And
sorry, was somebody saying something? No, it was just my echo then. Shruti, I think picking out from what you said, I think you kind of compare teachers to caregivers almost there, right? So the fact that they understand what you're going through, they pull you out of it, they make you think outside the box, so they give you a new perspective almost, right? And I think that fresh perspective from somebody who is older than you is kind of a very important trait or characteristic that I attach with teachers, is they give you a different perspective, and you respect that, one because you're taught to respect them, and second because you like them, and they have obviously taken the time out for you, right? So picking that apart was good. Thanks, Shruti. What
Yeah.
was your
Also,
Mhm.
yeah, sorry. I think I'll just add a couple of things. I think one more thing that I've noticed, rather two or three things maybe. The first thing is someone who has conviction in whatever he or she is teaching. I think that kind of stands apart.
Yeah.
Someone who believes in whatever he or she is teaching or training, the subject. I think once we see that passion, I think that kind of pulls you towards the person as well as the subject as well as towards the session, and you look forward to it time and again. So I still recall, even in college or in schools, there were subjects that I particularly did not enjoy. But as I moved ahead and as teachers changed, suddenly those subjects became one of my favorites, or other things that I would look forward to, just because the person teaching me used to have that passion for the subject, and that used to really that was really visible, and I could see that. So I wanted to really understand what it is about and whatnot. So I think that's one. I think secondly, and this is something that I observed when I stepped into a more of a professional journey, and I think since we talked about Think Talent, it kind of happened there. I think the second part, and which I think is very crucial, is the fact that uh, how much of uh, uh, how much of freedom or space are you given to learn? For example, if you're picking up something new, there are different ways of course, learning it. And I'm sure different people have different ways to learn. I found myself learning when I'm given that space to do experiments, to come up with, my own solutions. And if it's wrong, it's wrong, it's fine. So I think I had that, and I was lucky enough to get a mentor like that. And that kind of changed the entire professional journey, I say, because that kind of changed the way I was approaching my career as well. And lastly, I think not to be afraid to make mistakes. I think that's also something that really pushes someone towards learning more and more. Because the moment you are afraid to make mistakes, then you are afraid to even go there. So I think when the other person is open enough to give you that space to let you commit mistakes and learn from it, then that I think is a key part, because then you are willing to innovate, willing to think out of the box, willing to commit yourself to something without thinking about the end result, or thinking that you might go wrong or what will happen and so on and so forth. So I think, yeah, when this topic came up, I think I immediately could think of two or three things which kind of are very key. And I like the fact that I think it was Kaushik who mentioned it's very difficult to pinpoint people, because there have been so many of them who've played a really crucial role for us to be who we are right now, and it continues to do so, and it starts right from where we are at home, I mean, from parents. So it's very difficult to pinpoint, but yes, I think there are these qualities or things that they've done which have really stood out, and it kind of has had an impact.
I think what you said there is, it's almost like speaking to me, but I think the last point that you said, Satya, that it's okay if you made a mistake.
Yeah.
I think for me that was kind of missing. I did not have that. It's okay that you make a mistake, and that really whatever happens, good or bad, it shapes you, right? Like even bad things
Yeah.
shape you up. And I
Yeah.
think because I never had that at home or at school or in mentors, there was this intense need of making sure everything is right, you know, and then just putting yourself in a very frustrating position of overachieving and trying to do everything at one point and not letting go of even one thing that you can't do. So I think you're right. I think good or bad, whatever happened, it shapes you. But conviction is really great. I mean, even conviction in the fact that they don't like you, that really
Yeah.
stays. That really stays, you know. Or conviction in the fact that in their subject. I mean, I never
Yeah.
thought that I would like math. I never liked it until I found one teacher who just he loved math. The way he taught it, it was like he was teaching art.
Yeah.
You know, everybody goes yes on maths. I like
Yeah.
that. Nice. Gulin, what about you?
So, like you, Sakshi, I've had both like bad and good experiences with teachers. So I was not sure whether to reveal this story or not, and then I thought, okay, just fuck it. I mean, I'm going to share it. So it's very personal to me, and back in the day, I had actually changed a couple of schools while growing up, and this is probably when I was in class 9 or 10, and as far as I remember, I was a below average student, meaning I would not score more than 55%, and I would even fail in subjects like math, chemistry, and physics. Okay, Kaushik, you are so high five there. So and our school had this like really shitty system of dividing people in sections on the basis of their performance in exams, like, and by default I would be in section C among A, B, and C. Okay, and to my horror there were only guys, like only boys in my section. And and now when I think back in retrospect, I cannot in my adult self figure out why teachers thought it was a good idea, you know. And for me it was a nightmare. Like, imagine teenagers at that age are like very rowdy, and they are going through drastic hormonal changes, and definitely they aren't the most mature or even civilized at times. So among all those boys I always felt like a misfit, and that had a very bad impact on my self-esteem. And there were boys who would bully me. Slut shaming was also pretty common in that classroom. And while the girls in other sections were very studious and disciplined and stuff, I on the other hand was a very rebellious person, because when you put a girl in a section where you have boys who are teenagers and then I'm getting bullied, I never wanted to show that I am weak in some way. So I'd even learned to use cuss words like the guys would use. And why did I do that? Maybe because it was my way of dealing with all the stress that came along. So to cut the long story short, I was in a very, very miserable place. And believe you me, I hated my school to the core. Like, even teachers, I felt they were super judgy, you know. And fast forward to class 11, I changed my school because I wanted to study arts and not science and commerce, obviously. And back then, arts was not even offered in all schools. And that's where I found the person who has a very, very strong influence on my life. And that was my teacher, Upasna Sharma ma'am, if you're watching. So she was our psychology teacher. And she was the only teacher who actually saw behind my this tough girl persona. And I vividly remember many teachers in the school would judge me, demean me, but it was, Upasna ma'am who really, saw some talent in me, recognized my strength, and kind of guided me towards the career that she thought I would enjoy. And like most of you, her teaching style was never based on, fear or punishment, but it was more related to encouragement and positive reinforcement. So yeah, just like situational leadership. And yeah, so yeah, then imagine in class 12 I scored a whopping 87% marks, and I had never ever scored this much ever in my life. Now you may argue that maybe it is because of the subjects I chose, but no, I think it is because of the self-confidence that I gained after I met this lovely, lovely teacher in my life. So all
Nice.
all thanks
Nice.
to ma'am.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Gulleen. I think I mean, I didn't know that, and I think I think you got a lot of strength out of that those years as well, right? Like, I can completely relate to being bullied in school. I used to get bullied a lot,
Yeah.
slut shamed a lot, and bullied for being brown, which was the stupidest thing that could ever happen to somebody. Um, but I think what you said towards the end, it's situational leadership every day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Teaching is almost like situational, like that's what I'm thinking now that you've said it, Gurleen, that it's situational leadership every day with every student.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
different from each other. It's a tough job, man.
Yeah. And also, I think times have changed now. Now, I think I'm sure things are better. I don't know how were things when you were studying Sakshi because there's age gap there. But when I was in school, we had like super judgy teachers. They would actually like, I mean, beat the shit out of you as well if you if you don't solve the math puzzle right.
Same for me. I'm not that different.
No.
Same for us. I think, from a pool of a lot of judgment, a lot of, um, eyes that said a lot, so when your teachers stare at you, walking, and, their eyes just, that's constant judgment. And I think it's not their fault. It's just what they think is correct. But I think when you're in a teaching position, much like a leadership position, you cannot put your thoughts and values and cannot impose them on other people, whether they're youngsters or whether they're people your own age, right? Whether you're in a job, or you're talking to people who are your mentees, like you cannot impose what you feel is correct on anybody. And I'm going to contradict myself and say, even though I'm saying that you can't do that, I feel like the fact that they did that made me what I am today, made me disciplined, made me, realize I figured out what's good and bad on my own, but they kind of disciplined me in some way that, you don't
Yeah.
go places. Yes, Sahil.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in here. I'm not trying to focus on the the glass half empty, the negative. But basically, the thing is that I had myself seen, witnessed a lot of teachers who used to probably use their power of authority, or be a little bit more aggressive, and if they did not know. So for example, I was not that great in maths. So what used to happen is that there was this question asked to me and I couldn't respond, and it was asked to me in front of the whole class, and I just could not understand and I could not respond, which is fine. But he made it such a big deal that my confidence dropped so much that I just kind of started not liking the subject. Now that is not a good thing. So I feel as a teacher, it's, I mean, the words coming out from your mouth uh, plays a big role, especially in that age, and we all have been in that age, and it can really affect us. I mean, words can play a big role, and this is what I tell everybody, that it doesn't matter what you say, it's how you say it. So it was really bad, and there are a lot of things like this. Then in PT, I remember when we don't, so it's sunny, imagine it's sunny like hell, and you have to do march pass and all of that, and crazy, and socks up and all, all of that. And imagine, when you miss something and you don't do it and you get hit by that stick. I don't know what that's called. So I mean, I just didn't understand, why is this needed? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to share this. A lot of other good things too, but this is something which stood out, and I really did not like this aspect of it, because just wasn't good.
Yeah, I think, Sahil, what you said is correct, right? Like what stands out is not always the best part, but also the worst parts.
Yeah.
So
This style of education, even the one which Gurleen mentioned, like having section basis on your merit, these are all very primitive style of education. I mean, who would do that? I mean, you
Yeah.
end up with a full bunch of people who are it's like a subtype or prototype of the caste system that we are struggling with, and that you are just taking that and putting it in a school. It's the same. And then again, the same thing, like, why would you even beat up students for just because they couldn't answer,
Yeah.
instead of motivating them?
Yeah, but I think now it has changed
It has
like
changed a
incredibly.
lot, yeah.
Yeah, because I know that my wife is a teacher, and she
Yeah.
deals with kids day in, day out. And you're as a teacher, and I get to hear it from her that you're not actually supposed to hit kids. You're
Yeah.
not supposed to scold them. You're not supposed to shout at them. It's very, it has become, and I think it's the other side now totally. A lot has changed on that front. So and most of the schools these days have cameras and stuff. So any complaint that goes in, the school automatically favors the kids first, and they tend to see what happened and whatnot. So I think that in some ways it's good. It has changed. I think in some ways it's good. I think, and I also feel, and I don't know, maybe I'm playing devil's advocate, but there is also another side to it which we really can't ignore, which is the fact that how are parents really bringing up their kids? What's the kind of values that they are instilling? That is also very critical, because that plays a huge role in any child's upbringing. I think that's very common and natural for everyone to understand. So I think it's a two-way street. If you want teachers to really be very mature with the kids and deal with them in a particular way, I think it has to be instilled. Like in the movies, I think it was Spider-Man, with a lot of power comes, with great power comes great responsibility, or whatever it is. So I think it's that. So if that is expected out of the kids, then I think they should be also taught and right values to be instilled at home as well, which at times do not happen, very practically speaking. So you tend to see, and I get to hear some things that happen in schools these days, and I'm shocked. And I'm like, what are you saying? We have never even thought of those things when we were in that age group. So things that I get to hear now are incredibly crazy. So I think it's a very difficult thing to balance and to take care of, and it has to happen on all fronts. Is what I mean. So I think even the parenting has to really evolve in such a way that there is that sense of maturity which is instilled at home, which can be then replicated even at schools as well, and eventually when they move out and so on and so forth. So
So, fear is definitely a drive to motivate. However, you have to limit that fear. I mean, the means of which you are applying to have that fear has to be changed. It can't be beating up
yeah,
students. It can be
yeah,
anything
absolutely.
others. I mean, that's what.
Yeah, totally, yes, totally, yes.
And I think when everybody's giving up, putting up their points, I think what I'm in my mind, I'm comparing teaching to training almost. So
Yes.
my mind is drawing this
Yes.
parallel on its own,
Yeah.
where I'm thinking how training has changed over the years from a lecture mode to more inclusive, asking everybody to unmute and talk, giving presentations and stuff like that. So it's more two-way street. And I feel like the more we start giving accountability, that even though teaching is it's a noble profession, it's a great job, it's a job at the end of the day. You are employees of an organization where you are representing the organization, and people in front of you need to be respected and given that enough leeway. So I think that is where you create an atmosphere where people can look at it as a project, because why do teachers feel the need to hit somebody or take out their frustration is because they're only humans, right? So 9 to 5 dealing with angry, crazy hormone kids is not easy.
True. True.
That is when the frustration comes out. But as soon as you feel like you have a life outside of this, that this is where you are on the job and you're representing a company, you would never do that with your employees, right? However frustrated you are to your fellow teacher, you would never hit them. So just thinking about the kids at the same way, right? They are your clients at the end of the day. You can't hit them, or you can't just just bring out all the anger. So I feel like my mind for some reason is drawing that parallel between training and teaching now, and how we almost need to say that it's a noble profession, but it's a profession at the end of the day, and that's for your own sanity and that's for other people's sanity. Kind of keep it like that. very out there kind of idea, but
I think it's a holistic idea. It's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
What kind of I think school is one kind of teachers, but Amina, I know you have had teachers who are like so martial arts teacher and other mentors. What do you think about that? How does that play out?
That plays out very differently. If you will if you will ask me about teachers and the mentorship, everything, I have a very different experience for a couple of reasons. My entire family is filled with teachers. Okay. I have been a teacher of 3 jobs that I've had till now. 2 of them have been of teachers. I've been a model student, so I never had problems with teachers except once. Uh, so it depends on like you said, teaching is almost equal to training, you know, and it drives. It makes me wonder what place are you coming from. There are many people who look at teaching as just simply a profession, a means to earn bread and butter. Okay, now if you're an employee in a school, in an institution, you'll just do your work and you'll be done with it. Then there are people who run the organizations as well as other teachers. Now these are the kind of people who are gold diggers. Okay, and like Gurleen said, they classify people into top students and based on their grades and abilities. I think one of the reasons is because they are looking for the golden goose who's going to lay those golden eggs, and I've been a victim of that as well. So I know that people are just treating education and their profession as a means to earn money and nothing else, which makes teaching a hugely different idea. Okay. And there's a third thing where I realize for people, teaching is not just a profession, it's a calling, it's a passion. You know, even if they were not getting anything out of it, they'd still teach. They'll go on roads, they'll find a bridge, they'll make a blackboard, they'll teach people, you know. And these are the kind of teachers who make a huge impact. The teachers who are so in love with their subjects, their topics, that they're willing to do anything and everything, which basically means they look at student as a client, as a human being. They try to understand what is the problem, what's the situation, why is the child behaving in a certain way, and then try to help them through that problems. Okay, and sometimes they realize, okay, the child is really not good academically. The reason might be because they are much more inclined towards arts, sports, musics. So they will just help the child get bare minimum to pass the school. But on the other end, without anyone knowing, they're helping the child develop that skill, the extracurricular skill that they're having. So it all depends. It all comes down to the teacher being a person and what they look for. Like for my martial arts teacher, he is a professor at an engineering college, but he also does this martial arts training on the side. Why? Because he loves it so much, you know. And it gives you a lot of perspective. So the kind of teacher you are, the place where you're approaching your profession, the way you're looking at students is very important. And I think we need a lot of teachers who are self-aware, because then that problem of teachers taking out frustration on the kids, handling this and that. So it's a lot of things. There's a reason why I've been silent this whole time and I haven't spoken, is because when I look at teaching teachers, this whole profession, I have a lot of observation, a lot of perspective, because I've been the model student, but I've still faced obstacles from my teachers where they wouldn't let me go forward because they had that halo effect. They wanted some other student to come forward. I've also been in the areas where I've been at the lowest point of my life, like I was in 12th standard. My mother was going through a huge health crisis. I myself was going through a health crisis. Like I was having seizures, but no doctor could actually tell me that I was epileptic. So it wasn't diagnosed. I was having a lot of problems. And the classes that I was going to, suddenly from being the top student, I had become a very below average student. And instead of teaching like treating like any other average student, they treated me very bad, you know, like horribly. And that kind of gave me a perspective that I'm not a student for them. I'm just a money making machine, because based on what my score was going to be, they were going to charge next year's fee. So suddenly from being the top student, I turned into the bottom student. And that also gave me a perspective I'm a rebel. So I vowed a revenge against those teachers. And within 1 month, I managed to become the college topper, classes topper, everything. Uh, so that's left an impact. I've also been teacher at NGO where I've seen students come from very underprivileged, poor backgrounds where a lot of them had problems, family problems. Parents, father had left, mother had left, all those problems. And these were problem students. And teachers used to punish them. And I remember these specific problem students loving me because I did not punish them. You know, I sat with them, I helped them out. I was only teaching them English, but they used to come with me to problems of chemistry, physics, math. Sometimes they would just want to talk with me, and I still get those messages. Yeah, so teaching is, I think this requires a lot more interpretation, a lot more discussion, and a lot of things. Yeah, I think that's from my side.
It's a lot of training, need identification for the teachers that's happening right now.
Yeah, correct. We're doing a TNA together. But that's what happens when you bring bunch of psychologists in a room, isn't it? Start doing training need analysis. What do they need? What is missing? What's going on?
Diagnostic.
What are the schemas? Gurleen will come with the Jungian side. But I do feel like, you know, I think it's gonna be a shock, but I felt like when we decided upon the topic, I was like, but everybody talks about it, right? On Teachers' Day, everybody's talking about this. Even Arnab Goswami, I'm sure, will be doing a piece on it and about how teaching and education and what is happening. And we all discuss it. But I feel like, where are we going from that? Like, what is the outcome? What are we getting out of it? And I think that is why we added this aspect of understanding the traits of a great teacher or trainer, as we're comparing them to, and a teacher who's just there, like Amina said, maybe to find an ends to a living, right? So I feel like we want to understand the traits and then finally get to a point where we see, are you in the right profession? And what kind of things do you want to develop to get to a phase where children who are coming out of school and college are not killing other people? Right? That is, just don't kill other people. That's the basic need. Um, and it's funny because a lot of people are saying here they don't remember exact events. And Gurleen and I have an exact moment in my mind. So I was always a dancer, and my dance teacher was doing the practice and everything, and I was just standing there practicing. I was supposed to be the lead for that year, and my dance teacher literally said to the next person that she is so brown that nobody will see her from the stage.
What?
So I did not get the lead role. So for me, that was it. Like, for me, like a 15-year-old, that was it. I was the ugly looking person forever, right? And I had never had confidence. And I was all, oh my God, the bullying that started after that was crazy. So for me, like, I still remember exactly how she said it. I remember that scene very well. It's, I can play it in my mind again and again. And I remember how I felt. So for me, like, I have specific instances like those where I was like, if you hate brown skin, keep it to yourself, you know? And that's me now. At that stage, I was just devastated. So I had no confidence growing up. So it's very different, like exact moments just play back in my head like that. And then I have another one where, so Vandana ma'am, I don't know if you'll watch, but she's the one who joined Glass Half Full. But I remember I was always supposed to be a civil servant. So I was studying for IAS since I was a kid. And I had just taken psychology as a fallback option, which my father did not approve of, which my family did not approve of. Second year of college, Vandana ma'am started teaching, and she had so much conviction about the topic. She was teaching social psychology, and like Satya, you said, like, oh my God, she taught it like an art, like the super professor of your life. And I remember that feeling when I sat in the class and I was like, why am I not studying this? right? So I went back home. I told Dad, I'm sorry, but IAS is not going to happen. And I dropped IAS that day. Like I dropped any plans of it, did not, study from my books anymore, did not make geography notes anymore. And I was just doing that. And for me, like I still remember that feeling, that moment, and how it completely changed my life. So I have very specific moments from childhood till like last year of teachers and mentors who played a big role both ways, like good and bad. What were their traits? I don't know. Were they, I'm sure that, people who I love also have some things that are not so great. And people who were not so good to me also have traits that are great. But I don't know what makes a good teacher. Like I can't put my finger on that.
I think I may be able to help you there. People who are result oriented, result focused, like I want success at any cost, those are the kind of people who wouldn't care less about how they are getting the results, even if it's the at the cost of the people, the employees, like in general. And in your case, it was at the cost of student. We want a great dance performance, and I think XYZ student isn't good enough, they'll not bring that spotlight, and they were just result focused. I think that's one of the things that happens with teachers when they just want success at any cost, even if their words might end up damaging a person's life. That's one thing. And the other thing is like uh, coming from a place of love. I think this is very, very important. Uh, Kids can be super irritating, super frustrating, and they can be a headache. So to be able to come from a place where you realize that I love these kids no matter how they are, and most importantly, I am the one who's responsible for my mood, my frustration, and I shouldn't bring it out on others. I think those are some qualities which are really important for a teacher.
And you know, the
Knowing
travesty,
that
I
you're
think, is
responsible.
see, the travesty is in most of these cases, the teachers don't even realize that they're doing this. They're demotivating the students to death. And they just do it, it gets into their explicit behaviors, and they just can't help but to do that. So that's the irony. I mean, I'm sure if somebody would have highlighted that to them and said that, you're doing this and this is wrong, there will be some course of correction. But that also doesn't happen most of the time.
One reason can be because teaching profession is only said it's noble, but it's not treated like one. In companies, we have coaches, trainers coming to coach the leaders of the company, trainers coming in. But because they know that these leaders will eventually lead to the success of the organization. No such thing happens in schools and colleges. No coach and trainer is coming and teaching how for a teacher to be a better teacher. They'll just tell them, oh, go some more higher degree course. If you are a bachelor's, go get a master's degree. If you have a master's, go do PhD. And somehow that's supposed to make them good teachers. We only say that teaching is a noble profession, but honestly, no one gives a care anything about a teacher. They are overworked, underpaid. Most of the time, parents don't respect the teachers. The organization, the schools they work for don't respect the teachers. So it's only a noble profession on paper and for a few people, but almost everyone in the world doesn't really give teachers that much importance. That's one of the honestly, that's what I feel.
No, I think that, Amina, what you mentioned right at the beginning around I think you mentioned three types of teachers, that kind of struck a chord, because whatever you talked about is exactly what I have gone through, right from coming from a family of teachers. My great grandfather, my grandfather, my mom, my aunt. I was a trainer. Now, fortunately, unfortunately, I married a teacher, dance teacher, that too. So I think I've been involved with teachers throughout, and like you said, I was also a model student. I was a school topper, I was a university topper, and I studied for the first 8.5 years. I studied in the same school as my mom. So you can imagine the entire dynamics. It changes because you have your mother working as a teacher there. So and it kind of resonated what you mentioned. I've also faced the same part wherein you move into a new school and suddenly people know that you are a good student, but they don't really teachers. They don't really want you to succeed because they have someone who has been in the school since class 1, and they want that person to be the school topper, and a lot of things happen, And the good part and what you mentioned was right at the end, I eventually ended up being a school topper because you really can't control board examinations. But I think what you said about the three aspects of what really drives them, I think is the key. Because the moment they see that they don't have their own vested interest in which student is doing well and which is not, I think that plays a key role. The moment they have that vested interest that I don't want this person to do well, I only want this person to do well, I think that's where a lot of things change. And I've seen that happen to me, and that's kind of something that you talked about as well. So I think that's one, and also what happened to maybe Sakshi as well when she talked about it, and I think that's also closely related to someone who is only viewing success like what you said. What matters is the success and not really who's doing it, which is kind of tricky, which can be great because you are goal oriented, but eventually you're losing people while trying to accomplish that goal. You're losing a lot of respect while trying to accomplish that goal. For example, even now when Sakshi talks about, she doesn't share it in a great thought, or rather with a great feeling. I'm sure she still has unfortunate feelings related to it, because and that's some respect that the teacher may have lost, I'm surely, at that point of time right till now. So I think that's what I think it is. It's more about a combination of the interest, or not the interest, but the intention that the teachers have and what the end goal is that they have. Events, once these two do not really match, I think that's when we see a lot of problems arising, and we have so many unfortunate memories and incidents that we are able to recall. I believe one part or the other may have played a huge role in us getting that unfortunate experience.
I really like that. And I mean, the other thing I think you said, Amina, was coaching, right? We do have leadership coaching, that is correct. And now that we have called teachers in situational leaders or inspirational leaders, where are their coaches, right? We all are humans. I'm sure they also need a refresher once or twice that it's
No,
okay.
so Sakshi, some sessions do happen. For example, even for my wife, I'm not too sure in how many schools they happen, but where my wife works, some sessions do happen for the teachers. So they do have some workshops for the teachers, be it more from an activity-based workshop, or is it a technical workshop wherein they are taking them through a particular tool or something. There are times when they are just asked to do some activities as well. So something happens, but I'm not too sure if it happens in most of the schools, like you're saying. It doesn't happen like in every school, or rather most of the schools. It happens in very few schools which can actually, I don't know, financially sustain themselves while doing it, and can actually find some time and wavelength and mindset or other to do something like this. But it doesn't happen in most of the schools. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it didn't happen in mine, and
Yeah,
I
absolutely. Yeah.
love that it's happening now. Maybe it's something that has started to happen now, and I also feel like one big addition there is the soft skills part, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you actually lead a class of students and not see students as 10-year-old, but actually humans
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
feelings.
And which we do so frequently at workplace. I mean, in a training
Yeah.
kind of setup, it's a no-brainer. I mean, you don't have to even think about it, that it's a regular activity which you need to do. Refresher, all those TTT sessions, facilitation, platform delivery skills. I mean, we keep on doing that. And while you were Sakshi was like saying, there's a lot of similarity between teaching and training. So I was also oscillating between those thoughts. It's not all bad. Okay, so while we are all talking about the maybe we are trying to criticize and trying to see the silver lining, we had good experience. I'm sure we had good experiences as well. I had one of my teachers. So initially when I started this discussion, I did not have any figure in my mind, but right now after taking the cues from you guys, so I had this teacher of mine who's a literature teacher, and he used to, so the value system or the belief system that we are talking about, he is the one who had planted that seed in my brain. Okay. And he's the one. So I was grappling with this curiosity thing, because we live in a culture where curiosity is not appreciated much. We are not encouraged to ask a lot of questions, and I was so grappling with it. So I went to this teacher and I said that, sir, why can't I ask question? Why am I so infamous for asking questions? So, he planted that seed of that trait in me so well that even now when I look back, I only follow that option. And he showed me that, your curiosity would lead you to confusion, and confusion to exploration, and then enlightenment. And you need to see, what kind of curiosity you try to nurture. So, there is a kind of curiosity which is led by anxiety. Okay. I think that's called, it's not led by the moments of serendipity or the joy of discovery, but led by anxiety. And then it gives rise of these nauseating conspiracy theories that are kind of, we get to see going around these nauseating theories, and it's come out of this anxiety and tension. But this is something which we may not want to follow, and we want to follow some curiosity which would enlighten us, seeking for knowledge and seeking for skills and ideas, discoveries, etc. So yeah, I can relate to a number of value systems or value or traits that was what planted in me, and which I could encash later on in my career when I was actually going through the drill of life. So that way I'm obliged to them for sure.
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
and Kaushik, like when Kaushik was saying all of this, so I had this in mind that there are a lot of paradoxes also, because I remember when I was in school, teachers used to punish us for talking in the class. Like if I have to ask a question, and if I'm talking to my neighbor, the teacher will scold me, hey, stop talking and all that. And now that we have grown up, our teachers, our leaders expect us to teamwork, right?
Yeah,
Solve a problem together.
true.
We haven't even been taught the value of teamwork, because we were taught to be independent thinkers. Think about
Yeah.
yourself. You have to score so and so in order to grow. So this is so paradoxical. It doesn't even
Absolutely.
make sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
This is funny, right? Because now all we want to do is collaborate.
yeah.
Uh, I would like to share my views because I was silently, completely in sync with all of you guys. You were giving your examples, and it was nice listening to all of you. But I would also have to give my views. First of all, don't want to, come up as a rebel, but I completely, don't understand this entire education system itself. That in the system itself, you are saying that grade is the only thing on the basis of which we are going to judge you, and then we blame teachers and students that you are not performing well, and teachers are not teaching students well. So before, like I will not stretch that particular point, but that was my view on the entire education system. Then coming down to that teaching is a profession. So rightly said by our our parents or grandparents that teaching is a noble profession, and in my view, teachers, the person should only take a teaching as a profession only. Firstly, if they have a subject matter expertise on any particular subject, and secondly, if they have that skill set, the principles, the human principles which can make someone's life. It's like upbringing a child. As a parents, the parents do their duty, but it's an equal responsibility to the teacher to upbring, because around 5 to 7 hours of the time students are with teachers. And coming from a very small town, there used not be we didn't have the chance to learn from multiple teachers. There used to be 2 or 3 teachers who used to teach us multiple subjects. So at times we used to see only one teacher in a day, entire day. We used to teach us for more than 3 to 4 hours. So fortunately, I was very much lucky, to have very good teachers in my life who didn't judge me based on my marks, but they helped me, because obviously I was in my entire academics I was an average performer. So they spend more time with me because I needed more time. And that's what the teacher should do. They should not criticize the person who is just a student who is not performing well. They should spend more time with them because they need more, teaching rather than shouting or scolding. Because beating with stick or duster or shouting, that will not help them score marks. Will unnecessarily demoralize them. So I was lucky enough that I got very good teachers. Secondly, I consider one of my grandfather as my best teacher, because I didn't got a much chance to spend time with him. He passed away when I was very young. But one thing he taught me, which is still with me, that whatever you do, be it when you are a student, when you are working as a professional, or whether you are doing a business or whatever you do, excel in what you are doing. Give enough amount of time in what you're doing. And if you can't do that, like even if you're given enough time, if you're not able to do, if you're not able to excel it, be respectful to the people whom you are working with. In case of uh, uh, when you are learning, be respectful to your teachers, be respectful to your colleagues, be respectful to your clients, be respectful to your whatever people are around with you. That will make you a good human being. So that nurturing happened, and also my teachers were taught me the same thing. That at the end of the day, you are a human being. This marks, this entire traits, competencies will not come up with you everywhere, and that you won't be able to showcase everywhere to everyone. What you are and the way you behave in society will come across as how what you are and what is your upbringing and what teachers have taught you. Maybe I just went out of the track, but
No. Don't feel like that. I think what you said is resonating with a lot of people, so people are taking it in.
Yes.
And I think it definitely speaks to me, because you're right. Like, a lot of things that I thought were so important in school, like that art competition, are not important anymore. So I don't think that was the point of our teachers always saying be the best and win that competition. It was more like getting you up to speed on what the world has to bring to you. Shruti, you're awfully quiet. What has been your experience of?
Yeah, I'm just taking it all in. So I was thinking, I'm sure, I don't know what percentage of schools are doing it, but especially when they're looking out or recruiting a teacher, it's really important. I think that's what I'm gathering from everyone as well, that one is the subject matter expertise, two is probably looking at their emotional intelligence. How are they self-aware? Also, how are they able to manage their emotions? It's really important that they know who they are. And obviously, kids are not going to be quiet. They are not going to be sitting in one place. Kids are meant to move. So can you take all of that? That's a question that they need to also reflect on. And this is so important because especially when kids are really young, by the age of 5, between like 0 to 5, because that's when your foundation of personality is formed. You can literally like look at a 5-year-old and see their temperaments, and it's probably going to, you can like literally predict how they're going to behave when they're like 25 or 35. I'm not saying that that's how it is, but there is some sort of a correlation. There's no doubt about it, because I have literally seen, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds who were scared of their teachers while they were growing up. And today they are literally struggling with, careers, the way they talk to their managers at their workplace, or the way they communicate in their marriages. It's like a whole vicious circle. It's a little thing, even it could be a little remark that the teacher made, but that just carries on to like till eternity, like for your whole life. So that's really an important skill as a teacher, to connect with the child and understand, and the whole attitude of I am a teacher, I'm in a higher position, you need to listen to me, that sort of an attitude. I'm sure things are changing now, but that's really the need of the hour, that just let kids be the way they are, and to sort of form that, build a rapport, have that collaborative relationship going on, because that's how the real world works. Trying to, because it's really challenging when you're putting children in a cocoon, and finally when they're out in the real world, everything is so different. So you're like creating this artificial environment, and when you're finally there, you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So being a little mindful about that.
Yeah. I like how you said that don't create an artificial environment. That is so true. That
and
you're.
also, sorry, you were saying something, Sakshi.
No, sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Yes, I was saying like it's also, and currently at the times wherein teaching, it's more responsible job, because if this part has been not played rightly, we are going to waste the entire generation of population, especially coming to the countries like India and other places. We are we are the youngest country in the entire world, you can say that, be it India or other developing countries, wherein the average age of human being is below 20, below 18. So it's a more responsible job right now. If you don't do it that right, you can't expect the nation to become a developed country, not soon enough.
And just to add what Shruti mentioned, so my daughter is 3.5 years now, and I almost feel like my wife and I we literally have to get into the shoe of a teacher. So there's one observation with her. So she can't process this word called don't. So the moment I say don't do this, she will make sure that she does it. I mean, so don't drop your food, so she'll drop your food. So I was doing a bit of research, and then I found out that these are not, so saying this don't thing is not outcome oriented statement, and you got to say outcome oriented statements with not only kids, even with students. I mean, student life or the kids life, their brain is very impressionable at that time. They would focus on the words which are very interesting. So don't drop your food, so she will drop your food. Don't shout, she will shout. So instead of, you say it you have to convert it in a positive way and say that quiet down, or like, be careful with your food. So stuffs like that. So there is a lot to learn for even parents, not only for teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
I'd like to add on that it's very important for us that we're talking about just teachers in formal profession role, and we forget that we all are teachers, especially those who are parents. They have a young one who's looking up to them. But other than that as well, even if we are just colleagues, we are teachers to someone. We don't know how our behavior is impacting someone. There might be someone who's looking up to us, admiring us because of the traits we have. Or if we are in a senior position in the organization, there are people who are trying to understand how we got there. So they're looking up to us. So in a way, we all are teachers. We just don't have a formal title of formal student unless you're a mentor or something like that. But everyone is watching us, and someone or the other is learning from us. So it becomes a very important responsibility on us to be self-aware. Since we're talking so much about self-awareness and emotional intelligence, we all have to imbibe in us, whether or not we have a title that says we are a teacher, we are a professor, we are a mentor. Once we do that on an individual level, it automatically spreads to the people who are in our circle, to the young ones in the family, people that we know or we don't know. So yeah, I think that's really important to understand. We all are teachers in one way or the other. Even strangers are
Absolutely.
teachers.
Yeah. There's a list of things I can I can literally list down, which I've just had a conversation, and I really imbibe that from those people. So yeah, we all are teachers, you are right, Amina?
Yeah.
Sahil, you were saying something.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. So I actually wanted to add in from where everybody was saying how it is important to use the right words and the conditioning, especially when the kids are kids. So say 0 to 7 years. And you won't believe there is a proper research which proves this. It is called the power of the subconscious mind. So basically, and this is by Dr. Bruce Lipton. You can search him out. I've read many times. I've heard there are videos about him explaining that how you can train your subconscious mind, how you can change it. So basically what happens is when you are like 0 to 7, what Kaushik, just to add in to what he was saying, and it's so important here because the words are picked up. It becomes like an impression, like a permanent impression on the kid's mind, and it goes directly to the subconscious mind, and then it sticks, and then it's like a tape, and you can't talk to a tape. So you
And you will be surprised to know that it's not only words, but it's your mannerism, the way you talk, everything A to Z. I mean, whatever they're seeing their parents doing, they just copy it. I mean, that's quite fascinating to me. Like, how come at the 3-year-old kid is processing all this information in his brain and representing the same way that I'm doing?
Absolutely. And also there was this something which I'm not able to remember, in which they said, don't give us somebody who, I mean, just coming, I mean, we're digressing from the topic, but just this is with regards to the power of the subconscious mind. So don't give us kids who are like 10 years or 12 years. We don't want them. Give us somebody who's below 7 years, and that's where they can imbibe anything. So that's where you see brainwashing happens. That where you see African soldiers, their child soldiers. Why does that happen? You see their ages. It's really sad, but it's true. And yeah, there's a full science. So you guys are right.
Yeah, yeah. It says that, the cell division in the prefrontal cortex, the rate of cell division is highest between 3 to 7 years old.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the kind of activity that's happening, the neural activity that's happening inside the brain at that age, and they're so absorbing at that time. That's why, perhaps.
And to add on to that, there's also the part that in that age, a child is very vulnerable and they need others, their parents, adults to survive. If you leave them on their own, they'll probably die. So it's an evolution that has taught them to make sure that the caregivers are happy with them. So they please them, they do whatever they like, and they are learning how to survive by imitating what the adults in the family are doing. So basically, this age is just about survival, and they're picking up that.
Yeah.
And if we teach them good things, voila, their future is
Yeah.
good. If we train them in a wrong way, well, we all see how things turn out.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right. Everyone has a point.
I mean, it's so paradoxical when I ask my kid not to, look at screen, and while I'm saying that, I'm looking at my phone. And I was like, it's a moment of self-realization that what the hell I'm doing. I mean, I am looking at my phone and instructing her not to look at screen. I mean,
True.
Yeah.
True.
So you're all
No, I
teachers.
agree.
That's what we need to remember. And I think Gurleen's beer is finished, so we are coming to a close of the session. Which there you go. Which is I think I think this was very nice, healthy discussion around a lot of different points. I did make a list around connection, caregiving nature, giving that space to experiment, situational leadership, and teaching, coaching teachers for soft skills and giving them refreshers like we do in corporates, um, understanding the fact that success is not only success but also who is doing it and who's taking part and everybody coming together, and then also creating a realistic environment for kids in school and not actually an artificial environment. But I think overall, a lot of points from what we have gathered is they all have influenced our lives. We've all had teachers, mentors throughout. I think teaching is a bond that you start forming from a very young age, from obviously with your parents and then school, and then you seek mentors. When you get into professional life, you always seek mentors. So you go out and seek them because that is a form of safe space that you have learned from a young age. I think, and I'm going to give this space to everybody to kind of take a minute. Let's keep it 1 minute or short. If they want to say something about their teachers, and then you feel free to send it to them because I'm going to do it. But I think one last thing and one last thought is one teacher gave me, and I really put it to heart. And they said, don't put anybody on a pedestal, even a teacher, even a mother. Don't put them on a pedestal. And I'm gonna leave it with you guys for a food for thought. But I think that for me was a big thing for them to say. And if my teachers are watching, Punya ma'am, Mahima ma'am, oh my God, everybody from school, Uma ma'am, like, love you guys. Thank you. I know I don't reach out as often, Vandana ma'am, but thank you for everything. Guys, feel free to kind of, if you have a message, put it out, and then we can share the link so you can share it with your teachers. But I'm glad that, we had this talk because it really consolidated a lot of things for me. So thank you.
Yep.
So maybe, it's unfortunate that the teacher which I'm mentioning is no more here with us, and he has got tremendous kind of influence in my life. I mean, he's the one who at a very early stage taught me how ideologies are bad, how ideologues box you and you should have a free floating mind. He's the one who kind of taught me how to be curious and inquisitive without evaluating, because the moment you evaluate, you tend to judge people. So and the list goes on. So I just wish his blessing is with me. His name is Kamal Mukherjee. He was there he's a teacher in my school in Calcutta, and I hope that he is in peace and he's watching over me, and his blessing is with me forever. I'm forever obliged to him.
That's beautiful. I don't have a specific teacher that I'd like to mention because all my life I've learned from observing other people. Looking at them, I've realized the things that I want in life that I don't want in life. So it's a message for anyone who have come across, who have talked to, or even people who don't know I exist. Thank you for them for being who they are, because I'm really observe. I like to observe people and like to learn from them. So that's a thank you to everyone who's ever existed, who's existing or will exist. And I think we all forgot to talk about one teacher who's our mistakes. I think no one has ever taught us better than our own mistakes. So for all the mistakes and goof ups I've made, all the times I have, I don't know, done whatever, I'm grateful to all those times. They were probably really bad while I was going through them, but as I reflect back on them, I think my mistakes have made me a better person, better human being, and better professional. So yeah, that's all.
I would like to say here is, I think everyone is a teacher. We can learn from literally anybody and anyone, and like how we it's basically let me talk about myself personally. I'm here, whatever I have, in the sense, belief system or culture. So there's family that plays a big role, and culture and religion and all of that, but in all of these things, teachers also play a big role, peers. So I would say that whoever I am right now is because of them, and a big thank you to all of them. And there's this really nice quote which I just remembered, and I would like to share. It's called, um, what you are is God's gift to you, and what you become is your gift to God. And this was told to me by one of my teachers when I was leaving. So yeah, this is what I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a wonderful quote. I'll remember that. I think what I'll mention is possibly something that we talked about. I think it was the last weekend. I think we were talking about change, and I would say we were saying that change is the only constant, or something like that. But I'd say learning is also something that's a constant that I think won't change. We keep learning something or the other, be it from teachers or trainers, or even from people like I mentioned, from everyone around us. And it starts right at the beginning, right at home, from our parents, from our siblings, everybody. So there's some kind of learning that keeps happening. We learn what to do. We also learn what not to do, which is also some kind of learning in itself. So yes, so I think thankful to everyone who has taught me what to do and also taught me what not to do. Both are, I think, very, very critical.
Yeah, I can clearly remember when I was 14, I had a pretty difficult life growing up as a teenager, a lot of trauma, and I was like this broken vase. And there are two teachers that stood out, especially one, Anne George, and there was Indulekha Tampi. I don't know where she is right now, but they really stood by me. And over time, maybe it took about a year or two, and maybe I mean, I put back those glasses together. I wasn't the vase that was there before, maybe a beautiful new kaleidoscope, but they literally transformed me and just changed my life, something that would have never happened. So I'm also thankful for my mistake, because that just made me a new person. So I'm really thankful.
That was a beautiful analogy, Shruti. Very nicely put. So yeah, I've already mentioned about this favorite teacher of mine, Upasana Sharma, and I'll just share that. Thank you to Upasana Sharma, ma'am, and thank you for boosting my self-esteem. And that was the first time I really, really felt accepted and loved. Thank you so much. And professionally, I would like to mention my mentor. He's Mr. Rohit Sinha, and he's a mentor of a lot of people, not only for me. But yeah, so these are the two people who I would like to dedicate this day to. So thank you to both of them.
Thank you, everybody. I think everybody has had a chance. Yeah, all good to go. Thank you so.
Sohail is
Sorry,
there.
Sorry.
I was left out. So I would like to thank all the people who have come across in various parts of my life, who have taught me something, who have made me what I am today. If I have to name some specific people, who have made a remarkable impact on my life, then I will start from the beginning of my life and till now. I will take few names. So out of the few are like my Vidya teacher who used to teach me in my kindergarten. I still remember her. She's no more in this world, but I still remember the learnings, and the entire place used to tell that, see, Sohail is my student. Even to my parents, to my sisters, they used to tell that, see, he is my student. So it's very proudful to see, when teacher tells you that he is my student. Okay, so Vidya teacher is one. Then in my schooling, Abida ma'am, Ruhi ma'am, then Shailaja ma'am, who is my recent, professor in my masters. I would like to thank every one of you to, make me what I am today. Also, would like to thank all my mentors in my past organization, my current organization, who have made me, sail through this journey in a very nice way. And lastly, I would also like to thank myself, because I have also been a very good teacher of mine. Whenever at certain times I have taken help from myself. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank myself as well. Thank you, Sohail.
I really like the last
I
one.
like that. I
Yeah,
like
same
that.
here.
Loved it. So yeah, thanks.
We deserve this gratification.
Love it. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. I didn't feel the hour go away today, which is great, and I hope you guys had fun. Enjoy Saturdays.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. It's nice knowing each of you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Look
Thanks.
forward to
Bye.
many more sessions like
Bye,
this.
everyone.
Bye.
Happy
Take
weekend.
care. Bye-bye.
Weekend.
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend.
Happy weekend.
Yeah, take care. Bye.